And I had this existential moment where I was just like, I just helped create history. Like, of all the things I've done, I've been working in this business for 20 years. I've elected United States senators. I've been part of presidential campaigns. I've done some crazy shit. This is by far one of my crowning achievements, because forever, people are going to look to that question as the moment when a government official on the record said, we're not alone.
Welcome to the Creative Brief Podcast, the show where we talk about how you can leverage creativity as your competitive advantage. Today is a special episode. I'm talking to Phil Vangelakos, managing partner at Push Digital Group, and a man that I get to work with every day. Phil navigates the landscape of campaign politics like no one I've ever seen. He's a true integrator who has sharpened his creative skills to a razor's edge. I ask him how he navigates the dynamics of campaigns and candidates and the creatives that he works with on a daily basis to bring their visions to life. Oh, and we even touch on a way that his personal curiosities have somehow found their way into national discussions. If you're a creative visionary, I think you'll be fascinated to hear about how an integrator's mind works. There are a lot of lessons to learn from this conversation with Phil, so let's just jump into it. I'm Brian Athey, and this is the Creative Brief. What's up, Phil? Thanks for joining me, man.
How are you, Brian?
I feel weird a little bit because I talk to you as often as I do, and this is in a podcast setting. And I feel like, we'll have some ground to cover today that we haven't talked about before, but I would be remiss if we didn't start with the big news from last night. So, Phil, we are in politics, and last night was the Iowa caucuses. A handy, I think, less than 5-minute decision was made where Donald Trump won outright. What is your read on last night? What was going on?
I mean, there's the things I want to say, but professionally probably can't say. Mm-hmm. It took like CNN 30 minutes total to grant their winning badge to Donald Trump. I mean, there's really not a primary here. It's like, this is a coronation,
It does feel like that is the big takeaway from last night. There was nobody that finished within 30 points of him. Is that right?
Yeah, it's actually unprecedented. We've never seen an Iowa caucus with anybody win with a margin more than 12%. So this is unprecedented. It really is an incredible victory for the Trump team. But this is what I'll say about Donald Trump, and I can't get too deep into it, obviously, because of professional reasons. But, the guy had a primetime television show for like 10 years. They just don't give those away. They're worth money. When you spend that much time on television and you're a hit, like he had a number one television show.
Legit hit.
When you have that much time on television in people's living rooms for as long as he did, and even prior to that, he was kind of like a household name. I mean, I was listening to the Nelly's Ride With Me the other day.
I know what you're saying.
And he's, you know what I'm saying? And he's like, Donald Trump, let me
in now.
Right? And like, he's, even before he was president, the guy was famous. And one of the things that you learn in just political advertising is that the number one indicator of vote choice is party ID. But in a primary caucus, there's no party ID. Everybody's a Republican. So the second indicator of vote choice is name ID. It's who people know the most. Well, like I said, 10 years with a number one primetime hit TV show is going to give it to you.
Plus a handful of years of campaigning, 4 years as president, and still.
That's right. I mean, until Will Smith smacked Chris Rock, if he wanted to run for president, like, he could, because his likability was high and his name ID was high. He's a household name. He saved the world from fucking aliens. Like, the guy, if he wanted to be president prior to that moment, could have run.
Will Smith, the Welcome to Earth campaign.
Welcome to Earth.
Well, dude, I want to set you up just a little bit because, like I told you before we started, this is a creative podcast, and I think that I've got a lot of creatives and designers and entrepreneurs that listen. But
I'm creative as
that's
fuck,
what
by
I
the way.
mean. That's what I mean. That's the setup right here. Don't step on my lead. What I wanted to say is that Phil Vangelakos is the managing partner of one of the largest political digital multimedia firms in the country. Fundraising, advertising, all manner of creative practice goes on within our production teams. And Phil manages that whole spectrum and all the dynamics of give or take 70-ish people on a daily basis. The amount of creativity that I've seen him exhibit in the room is really second to none. And I think that that's where you have so much to offer an audience of creatives, is that creativity is not just a sit at a computer working in Photoshop or on Figma
Right.
exercise. It is an in the room
Right.
exercise that you've somehow figured out how to navigate it dozens of different directions at a time. So if you could just kind of lay out, Phil, like what a typical day looks like for you and how often the dreaded phone call and meeting happens for you and how you are able to sustain the level of effort that it takes to manage all these things at once and still find some semblance of creativity.
You know, I think you might have been the person who told me this, or maybe I told you this in just thinking about how you operate, but I think it applies to everybody who's kind of creative. Uh, Productivity saps creativity, and creativity saps productivity.
Wow.
And so you can't have it both ways. There's a balance here. And in my time as the managing partner of a firm like this one, I can honestly say that my creativity has 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 diminished. You know,
Because of
I'm
the
a
day to day, you think?
That's right. That's right. You get stuck on 16. You saw my schedule to book this thing. Like, okay, I'm on conference call to conference call all day
Yeah.
long. And so my ability to come up with great creative content or creative strategies is only as powerful as the free time I'm able to give
Mhm.
myself. And I think that goes for any creative. Like if you don't have the space, if you don't have the time, if you don't have the there's talk about the muse. You know what I'm
Hell yeah.
talking about? And the muse in creativity doesn't show up on an iCal. You can't schedule that.
Yeah.
And so you got to have time for it to appear. You got to have time for it to manifest itself. And you're stuck on 10 to 15 Zooms a day. You have personnel meetings, you have HR meetings, you have finance meetings. You can say goodbye to your creativity.
You would think.
That being said, I think it makes my creativity actually all the more impressive.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Because I can, and I think I don't know how I did it, but I can move in it from a standardized finance meeting or leadership meeting where we're talking about processes and procedure, things that are very non-creative. And then you get me in front of a whiteboard, and all of a sudden the magic comes back. Like as soon as I get a dry erase pen in my hands and I have an audience, it's like I'm a performer again. And that's it's the muscle memory. Like I was watching the show Louder Milk on
No, I hadn't
Netflix,
seen that one.
and it's all about these drunks who go to AA
Yeah.
meetings, and they all are talking about their triggers, about the triggers that make them drink. Well, I noticed there are triggers that make me creative.
Tell me more about that.
Like, do you know what
Well,
I'm talking about?
tell me more about that. Yeah, I think I do.
Well, if like the whiteboard that I was just talking about, if I get a dry erase pen and a whiteboard and I have an audience, all of a sudden it's like the music starts playing. and I'm able to come up with things. It's a muscle memory inside me that goes, okay, it's time to be creative
Well, you've talked to me before that you're a bit of an introvert. And I think
now. I
that could
am.
very well be just bullshit talking. That's like setting low expectations so
Yeah.
you can outperform
No,
them.
no, no,
But
no.
here's speaking of triggers, here's what I've observed about you. You will come off of a string of 6, 7, 8 meetings in a row, hour-long meetings in a row. We're talking about end of the day, 4:00, and you will walk into a conference room and you will sit down unprepared, unbriefed. You won't know what's going on, and problems will start popping up, and then everybody will just kind of look at you and they'll say, "Phil, what do you think?" And from somewhere deep inside, you don't have you might not have an answer ready. You might not have thought about it all the way through, but it just kind of happens. And you are able to articulate it in a way that is not just clear and doesn't just cut through all the noise, but it also like kind of gets everybody hyped up and ready to go take action. It's like, oh, this is the right solution. Where, if you are really that self-described introvert, like where does that reflex come from? How, when the spotlight turns on you, you don't shrink back. That's like where you come alive. How does that happen?
Okay, so I am an introvert in the sense that what recharges me is being by myself. It's reading, it's listening to music, it's not being social. What recharges me is being a little bit of a
Mhm.
recluse. I noticed probably early high school that if I was going to ever have friends, if I was ever going to make money, if I was ever going to get laid, I was going to have to come out of that shell. That I have a gift of cogent thinking and communication, and that if there was ever, whether I like it or not, this was going to be my ticket. So I assumed the role Monday through Friday, 9 o'clock to whenever in the afternoon when I quit, as an extrovert. But if you ask my wife when I get home, like I'm quiet. I don't say a fucking word. Like
It's hard to
I'm,
believe.
yeah, yeah, man, it's
It's hard to
wild.
believe.
Um, but you know, my favorite days are on a rainy Saturday when all the excuses to stay inside, maybe even stay in bed and just open up a book and read. Those are my best moments. And actually, they're the moments when the muse manifests itself, when the creative ideas, when the spark of creativity in me happens the most. Everything else is more of a manifestation of, okay, nobody else in here has ideas. We've got things to do. Let's spur some conversation. Let's talk about what we know. And I think with problem solving and strategy in particular, if you want to be creative with thinking about strategy, you have to have like what the foundation is. What's the initial problem? What's the problem you're trying to
Mm.
solve? Sometimes just stating the problem allows a solution to appear to yourself.
Actually, I wanted to talk to you about this. Have you heard that exercise before? I was just reading about it over the weekend. And it is, if you're trying to solve a problem, describe how you can make it worse. Have you heard about that
Yeah,
before?
yeah,
Have you heard
exactly.
about that before? Like,
I've never done it. Stating the problem in my opinion, it's like the starting
Mhm.
point. You get a lot of people in those types of conversations who they want to give input for one personal reason or another. They're insecure. They want to show somebody they're smart. They're trying to stick out. But if everybody doesn't know the problem you're actually trying to solve for, what you get are solutions that don't fit the problem
Mhm.
itself. And I notice, in order just to spur conversation, it's like here, just putting it on the whiteboard, letting everybody see this is the issue. Sometimes starts the conversation off when everybody's, like what you said, when everybody's quiet and they have no solutions and everybody's looking to you. My solution is always, let's talk about what the problem actually is. Because if, as long as we define the problem, we talk through what we're trying to solve for, at least then we're not all going in different directions. At least then we're all headed in someplace
You
similar.
have this natural inclination to do that is really really unique, and I feel like it might just be because of the economy that this industry demands. You know, you've been how long have you been in politics?
Um, I'm 40, and so I started when I was 20. So this will be my 20th year
5 cycles.
in the
Yeah.
industry. 5 cycles. Yeah.
That's
Yeah, 5 cycles. That's 5 presidential
so
cycles.
I think if you could, we talk about this on a regular basis, but I want to set up something that makes this industry very unique is that you don't have time or resources often to solve a problem to the level that you need to, and you've just got to kind of make it happen. And as related to that, you know, in the room, kind of to paint a picture, you're often sitting in a circle after traveling for a day on an early morning flight, eating crap food at an airport or at a drive-through on the way. You are often sat down in a meeting full of peers, experts in, you know, data modeling, experts in polling and state
Yes.
demographics, expert, you know, all these inputs, communications folks and fundraising folks,
A lot of
right?
gurus.
And you don't have time to bullshit. And a lot of the times, like whatever you came in thinking you were going to talk about might have changed while you were on the plane. Talk about this industry different from every other when there is a problem and the expectations of solving that problem with creativity, not over the course of several weeks or months, but in the moment, and how you kind of deploy a team to do that.
One of the most fulfilling parts of this industry is collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is an expert in
Yep.
something, and everybody has their own niche and their own specialty. There are very few generalists in professional campaign politics. And, you know, I have my specialties. My specialties are in digital and creative media buying. And I know that at least in my universe, I don't know how to call it, what I would call it. It's the around the table
Mm-hmm.
of how everybody is going to execute and deploy their specialty to solve the problem is always so cool to me. It's caused me to have like an obsession with specialists or
Mm-hmm.
experts. Like the other day, I got my lawn, not just, it was landscaped, like a fully landscaped, manicured lawn. And I was talking to the guy who did my
Mm-hmm.
lawn and why he did one bush and one tree the way he did it. And I was blown away by his knowledge and his expertise. And I just find myself being enthralled with people who are experts. And I think it's because of the industry I work in. Because if you have like a direct mail guy or a pollster, like they are a wizard in their
Mm-hmm.
craft. And so when you talk to somebody who really knows and cares about the thing that they do well, um, and there's mutual respect, typically, it's pretty smooth. Where it doesn't go smooth in this industry is where you have a candidate or a principal who believes they're the expert at everything, because clearly they're
Mm-hmm.
not. They got rich doing business, they got rich doing something that's not what you
Mm-hmm.
do. And they bring their confidence from their industry into something that's so niche. I don't know many other political consultants. I'm like the only, like in my personal life among friends, like I don't have many political consultant
Sure.
friends. There's not a whole lot of
That's right.
us. And so like I can tell you that when a candidate comes to bear with their pseudo expertise in an area they know nothing about, it gets a little frustrating and can throw a monkey wrench in the harmony of
Do you
experts.
think that's
Because there is something to the harmony of experts that allows a project to go really smoothly. It's like a heist,
yeah, do you think
you
do
know,
you
like You got the guy on the computer, you got the explosives expert, you got everybody who does their piece in a heist. And if they do it correctly, like the end of the movie is really good. The candidate is not the expert. That's why they hired me.
You don't see Danny Ocean trying to do all the acrobatics. He's in the casino smoking cigarettes.
That's right. That's right.
So do you think it's because of the stakes of the situation? Do you think it's I mean, obviously there's some vanity and narcissism in politics amongst candidates, but do you think it's because of the high stakes of the situation that folks are not always trusting of the experts that they hire?
No, it is. They're the bride. I just thought of it. Like the candidate is the bride. And this is their wedding. Their day. They've been dreaming about this their entire life. This is their big day. And they've invested so much in it. Like personally, financially, reputationally. And because the stakes are so high on the wedding day, they're a little bit of a bridezilla. And you see it from candidate to candidate. It's going to happen. Now, every once in a while, you get a really cool candidate who's just like, dude, you're in charge. You tell me what to do. And typically those candidates win, and they win big. But sometimes you can't help yourself because it's your special day. It's your special thing. And there's so much invested into it that you're gonna have opinions that don't line up with reality.
Well, I think that's a really interesting analogy because we have spent so much time building these like small, specialized, performance-driven teams, folks that are very specifically acute and aware of how fundraising works, very specifically aware of how persuasion advertising works, very, very acutely aware of list and data management and rev shares and rentals. It's like we are no longer this team of generalists. We are specialists, campaign consultants and strategists, specialist fundraisers, specialist advertisers. But what is it? We've got this whole build to win philosophy. What does it look like for a candidate when all that comes together? Like, what does it look like when they give us the trust? What does it look like when they can count on us to deliver? And what is it that we're going to deliver for them?
It's a symphony. There's when everyone's singing the same song and playing their own part within that song, it's beautiful. And there's a lot of camaraderie between the different players, and it gets done faster. It gets done cheaper. The margins of victory are bigger. But I famously have butt heads with people on campaigns.
They call it infamously.
Yes. I think I told you the other day that there are going to be two types of people at my retirement party. They're going to be the people who are like, Phil is the most gregarious guy I've ever known. He's so funny. He has so many jokes. And then there are going to be people who are like, Phil has serious anger management issues. And they're both going to be right. They're both going to be 100% correct, because one of the things that irks me the most is when people decide to ruin the harmony of a campaign. I can't describe it. You'd have to just do it to actually believe me. But doing a campaign with somebody, it's like going to war. Like the bond between you and that person, you never forget that election cycle. You never forget that campaign. And when you decide to screw up the harmony and the beauty and the music of a really good campaign, you're taking away my joy, and I'm going to let you know it. And I can't help but be upset when that rhythm of everyone doing their job correctly and efficiently is ruined. Now, if it's a candidate, I'm going to withhold my opinion. This is their race. If they want to screw it up, if they want to do crazy shit, they want to say crazy shit, that's on them. But if it's another consultant or a campaign staff member, I'm going to pull you aside. I'm going to tell you something, because this is it's a beautiful thing when it comes together. There is no better feeling than on election night. Election night is electric. It's like the high you get from winning a campaign. It's what keeps you coming back. Like there's some of us that make money in this industry. There's a good chunk of people that are making a lot of money in politics. But I guarantee you, what keeps them coming back is the victories. Because once you make that money, it's a lot easier to put it in the S&P and let it grow 7% every single year. It's a lot easier to buy a couple beach houses and be a landlord. There's a lot easier ways to make money. What keeps you coming back is the harmony and the music and the beauty and the excitement of election night and that victory. And so you don't want to screw that up for anybody. You don't want to be the person who screws it up. You want to do your job efficiently. You want to bring to bear all of your creativity in a way that adds to the group, but doesn't subtract for your own self-interest. Yeah. There's nobody likes political consultants. We're scum of the earth.
Like you, Phil.
I get it. But there's honor among thieves here. And I can't stand the people who want to sap the beauty of what
it can be fun, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be miserable. I think you said, I think you said this on an all staff the other day. You were like, this is a tough industry. We don't have to contribute to it being miserable. We don't have to make it worse.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. That's why I try to start every Zoom meeting, every conference call, every in-person meeting with a smile on my face, with a joke to tell, because this can be miserable. And there are a lot of people who, do you notice this, that they enjoy being miserable? They enjoy, like, it's a part of their persona to be an asshole. I hate that. That's not why I do this.
Do you ever go, or you ever sit down in a hiring meeting and somebody sends you a resume and you've got high hopes, and then you go look at their accounts and it's just like sniping and griping and negative bullshit just in a big chain, and you're just like, I can't invite this into my life. Have you ever done that?
Yeah, I'm more likely to hire the nerd.
Yeah.
The happy-go-lucky nerd. We got a lot of those at Push Digital.
Yeah, dude, I love nerds.
I love the nerds. I love it because the nerds grow up to be like healthy, normal people with kind of normal interactions. And I don't want to surround myself with negative folks. There's enough negativity to go around. We don't need to be a part of it.
Well, this will be a crazy election, and it's certainly going to inspire some negativity, but it's also going to be one like we've never seen before. In 2024, we've got crazy factors to deal with and contend with on our end. The economy is weird, and so people aren't donating money, which means that politicians are going to wait longer to go up on their advertising, which means that it's more likely to be sensational to get eyes on it, which means it's more likely to be negative to keep the narrative from being anything uniting or positive. And we talk a lot about building brand early so that when something bad happens down the line, you can always point back to the positive narrative you've been weaving. But I just wonder what kind of curveballs you're seeing. I mean, like, they're aliens, man. They're like, I just saw another video the other night, and there's like a model on a plane flying back from, have you seen this one? She's like flying from Peru, and she holds her phone out the window, and there's the same saucer that Fravor is seeing, and that, what's his name describes. Who is the guy that, Bob Lazar described? It's like all the same craft. Like,
it's wild.
There's some wild cards.
There's some wild cards. That's the kind of the beauty of politics, is that every election cycle, it's like you hit a reset button and you get a new set of problems, a new set of candidates, a new set of economics. The whole landscape is different. And so your ability to be creative and problem solve and strategize is put to the test, right? If it was the same every single time, Well, this would just be formulaic. I could be a dentist, right? Like you could do anything. Like that's every other job. What's interesting about politics is that it's going to be different. And I used to play this video game, Civilization, and one of the cool things about playing this video game is that you have to conquer the world. But every time you start the game, the resources you have, the team you're playing with, the landscape you're playing on becomes different.
Yeah.
And that's the joy in this to me is like, okay, give me a new challenge. I don't want it to be the same. I want UFOs to show up in the middle of this election cycle. And I want to be able to write statements for candidates and deploy creative about UFOs because that would just be new and different. It would be cool.
It would be so cool. And it would be, I mean, you are Reddit Phil. You are the internal source that how did that come about? Yeah. Can you share that story?
Yeah, I can share the story. I don't think she's going to be upset. But we, I follow UFOs. I always have. I love the whole topic of UFOs and aliens. I've been a sci-fi nerd my entire life. And Congress recently started to look into UFOs.
Right.
Because there's a whistleblower out there, David Grush, who has made some extraordinary claims. He says that, the United States government has multiple craft in its possession, that we even have, bodies of the pilots of these craft. And he did it under oath. So if he's lying, he goes to jail. And this is like a highly decorated combat veteran who is ranking within the intelligence service of the United States. And so we have just a logical problem. And that problem is if what he's saying is true, that's crazy. And the American people have been lied to for many,
but also
many years.
It seems like a lot of people have kind of followed this news and they're just like,
We got a lot going on. We got inflation. We got TikTok. There's a bunch of shit happening that just consumes our lives. Yeah. And you know what? Sometimes conspiracies, they allow themselves to sink in a way where they become a foregone conclusion. So it's like, of course, the CIA is covering up the Kennedy assassination. Of course they killed him. We don't know that, But so anyway, David Grush appears before the Oversight Committee. We have several clients who sit on the Oversight Committee. And one of my clients, Nancy Mace was texting, asking, well, what should I ask him? Because she knew that, like, I was really into. I was watching. I took the day off.
Yep, I remember that.
I sat in my underwear to watch a UFO hearing. And I got a big soda. Like it was like
it was Christmas. It was a good day.
Yeah, it was a good day. And so she's texting me, and so I text her back. I said, "You need to ask if the United States government has the bodies." And sure enough, she asks the question, and he goes, "Yeah, we have Biologics." And
that was the line.
It was the famous line from that hearing. And I had this existential moment where I was just like, I just helped create history. Like of all the things I've done, I've been working in this business for 20 years. I've elected United States senators. I've been part of presidential campaigns. I've done some crazy shit. This is by far one of my crowning achievements because forever people are going to look to that question as the moment when a government official on the record said, we're not alone. And it's why nobody else thought to ask the fucking question. I have no idea, but it is the question are we alone? Is there something else out there? And he confirmed, yeah, we got something. And still, I tell this story to my friends and family, and they're like, okay, Phil. I'm like, it was on the fucking news. The New York Times wrote about this. It's real.
This is what I mean. It's like you would expect the reaction. Did you ever read what AD After Disclosure?
Yes.
AD lays out like the sequence of events that would happen if a world power had to disclose that
right.
So you kind of have all this built up in your mind. They're going to close down the stock market so there's not a run. They're going to, make sure that grocery stores are stocked. They're going to do all these things. And the ensuing sort of realizations that come after that for world religions and world power systems and all this stuff.
Yeah, it didn't play
But
out like
instead,
that.
everybody was just like looked up from their phone for a second and they were like, cool, seems like just another day in 2023, and then just went right back to scrolling.
I know, dude. It's okay though. I mean, I think what it's going to take is everybody seeing something. You're a graphic designer by trade, and you know that the visual aspect of this stuff means a lot. And so people just talking about there being aliens isn't as good as people seeing aliens.
Yeah, which is why.
And I think that'll be the differential. The difference.
That's why I was so excited about Miami the other day.
That stuff's wild because we're going to hear about that stuff. We've kind of got alien fever right now and UFO fever in this country. In the literature, they call it a flap. So ufologists call it a flap when there's a period of intense sightings and encounters, and they happen in flaps. And there's a guy. John Keel and Jacques Vallée that talk about these flaps throughout history since basically the 1940s. And we're going through one right now. People are seeing shit. And, I'm a full-time political consultant, part-time ufologist.
Sometime DJ.
In my own time. Sometimes DJs. But this is just something that might come up. It's another aspect of culture right now. I think it's a cool aspect of culture.
Let me kind of flex my professional podcaster muscle here. Watch how I do this. All right. So we've talked about creativity. We've talked about tapping into something in the room. We've talked about UFOs and UAPs. Let's come all the way back to that muse that you talked about at the beginning. Yeah. What is that muse? What is it? Who is it? How is it that in moments of quiet and solitude, while you're behind the turntables or while you're reading a book or while you're plopped on the couch over the weekend, recharging and decompressing, what is that voice that shows up and talks to you?
I don't know, man. When you're young, that voice is screaming. It's loud. And so, I can see how young people get distracted and they pick up a lot of different hobbies and do a lot of different things because you can be good at a lot of things when you're young and you get a lot of inspiration when you're young. And as you get older, that voice, that muse gets quieter and quiet. It gets softer, and eventually you have to really listen for inspiration to do something cool. And I don't know what it is or where it comes from, but I've talked about this with other people, and it's one of those things that I think is a common shared human experience. And either you can ignore it in your life or you can embrace it. And when you embrace it, people are going to think you're crazy, you're eccentric. I mean, you get shit for listening to the creative voices in your head. But I can name several instances in my life when, in both good times and in bad, when I was listening, when I was being quiet and I was listening, that changed my life, that I ended up acting on the muse. And it changed the course of my life forever. And that's why I make time now, just to be quiet. Just to be quiet, to listen, to feed myself creative things, to dive into things that fulfill me, not not even professionally. It's like everything I do in this office, this is a means to an end.
Mm.
This is the means to an end for me feeling fulfilled, me being a whole person. And when I've listened to that direction, it's never led me astray. It's had me do crazy things that people have been like, what are
Yeah.
you thinking? But those things have made me who I am. And it's always been positive, even when it looked crazy. I don't know that I started a digital business in 2009. And everyone back then was like, what are you doing? Why aren't you going into TV production for political campaigns? Why aren't you going into direct mail? And in my brain, and you couldn't have known it in 2009 because there was not an advertising platform.
No.
There was, you could buy Google ads,
Right?
right? Like, but it wasn't the same
A
as it is
handful of
now.
years in on YouTube and Facebook and all that kind
I
of
had
stuff.
to beg clients to spend $500 on Facebook. And I had to, argue that, hey, Barack Obama just did this. Everybody's going to be doing it 10 years from now. Everybody thought I was nuts building websites for candidates. But I couldn't have anticipated that, candidates would then spend 10, 20, $30 million on digital advertising a decade later. And I had to go through hard times early on in order to be, in order to justify what the muse had given me. You go through moments of self-doubt where you're like, why am I doing this? Why am I putting up with this? But it panned out. And I look at several instances in my life like that. And I'm just like, I just need to get home. I need to put some headphones on. I need to think about things that aren't distracting me from the calm and serenity that allows me to really listen to whatever that is. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's something universal, if I'm tapping into a hive consciousness. I don't know if it's just my own sort of neurosis. I don't know if I'm just fucking crazy.
That's the hard part about the muse, right?
You don't know. And this is why I feel really hesitant to want to criticize creatives. Like, it's personally, I don't like doing it. Like, if everybody's shitting on Kanye West, I'm like, I don't want to go there. I want to let the crazy just happen with a guy like that, because you don't know what you're going to get. You might get a moment of brilliance out of it, and it enriches all of humanity when somebody does that. And I'm sure there are reasons to criticize the guy. Listen, you don't want to say stupid shit.
But can you imagine the new album? Can you imagine what he's about to drop?
I've heard a little bit of it, and it's fire.
Are you kidding? Really?
Yeah. He's got a single out now from the new album, and it comes out on the 19th. So in 3 days. I'm excited.
I didn't realize.
He samples the Backstreet Boys. It's fucking brilliant, dude.
What song?
And he's working with, it's called Everybody.
He samples everybody from the Backstreet Boys? You heard it here first, guys.
He does, dude. And he's working with a couple cool producers. A guy named Wax Motif, who's a house DJ. He's got a couple tracks on that album, and it just looks, he's going in a direction that looks really cool. And so, yes, is he crazy? Yeah. Does he say stupid shit? For sure. I've been there. Everybody's gone off the deep end. But the people who never go off the deep end, the people who never listen to the muse, the people who never embrace the voice in their own silence, never do anything great.
Yeah.
They live fucking mundane lives.
Yeah. You've got me reading these books, Secret Machines. I got through Gods. Now I'm reading Man. And that's trippy. But it makes me think about, have you ever been out to like the desert or to like high up on a mountain, or have you ever just been out in isolation and the stars at night come up, and most of your life, most of the time, you're in ambient light and there's street lights and there's, you don't see the stars, but when you're out in a place where there's very little ambient light, you can see them. And you realize that those stars are always there to tap into, but you've just got all this sort of haze and abstraction around that scene. Like that's what the muse is to me. It's always remembering that, like, if you can trust that it's there and relax enough, quiet all the other voices enough, and stop. I mean, even in a pressured situation, feeling like it's got to happen right now.
No doubt. No doubt. I also noticed that I just don't get creativity from it. I also find my moments of great empathy come from the quiet moments. When I'm able to be quiet and think through my life, I end up feeling for people in a way that I wouldn't otherwise. And, you know, like I'll have a thought about a coworker, or I'll have a thought about my wife, or I'll have a thought about somebody, and it's just like something impresses me about what's going on in their world, to reach out to them and to talk to them and to give them a good word, to give them something they might need from me. And I don't know, there's nothing spiritual about this, but like in the course of modern humanity, you can lose your humanity. In the course of modern life, you can be like, I'm not what is human is to connect from human to human.
Right.
And so often we stop doing that because we're texting, we're on our computers, we're watching TV, we're addicted to screens, and we forget to be like, hey babe, I love you so much. You're the most beautiful thing in the world. Like, it's those sorts of moments that, like, sometimes I get from my quiet, and it just wouldn't happen otherwise.
Well, you can see that translated into what we do in a lot of ways, because it is a bedrock philosophy that there is always a person behind that screen. For every video you cut, for every ad you place, there's always a person on the other side of it. It's not just numbers, and it's not just data, and it's not just a graphic that looks cool or a video that's, really epic. It's realizing that there is somebody on the other side of that we've got to talk to.
That's right. I mean, ultimately the audience sees through everything. Like, one of my favorite things to say is like, if somebody's like, you didn't understand me, you don't get what I'm talking about, I'm like, don't blame the audience. I'm the audience. Like, if you're not, if your thoughts and your love and your excitement for whatever you're doing isn't translated and it flies over the audience's head, that's on you. You fucked up. And the only way to stay in tune with the audience is to understand where they're coming from. It's to be empathetic, to have a real empathy for who they are and what they're doing. I was once told it's really hard for a good-looking guy to be a great stand-up comedian. And it's because the audience loses the empathy for that stand-up comedian's jokes. But if you get a guy like Shane Gillis or Chris Rock or John Candy or Chris Farley, these are funny guys partly because they look funny. And the audience is able to go, yeah, I get it. And I think, you see that in politics too. Like a Mitt Romney, that guy's got everything going for him. It's hard to have empathy for a millionaire with a billionaire with a perfect family,
Right.
But like, Bill Clinton, everybody's got a bitch wife and a crazy brother, and like, I get it.
Well, that's perfect, Phil, because that's a great segue into your Twitter account. Tell everybody where they can find you.
You can find me at Phil Vangelakos, at Phil Vangelakos, Vangelakos.
For musings about aliens, Clinton, and everything in between. It's a great
house music.
It's a great follow. Phil, I'm trying to be respectful of your time. I know you've got one lined up in 4 minutes because I heard the notification go off. But thank you so much for taking a minute and just talking a little bit from a manager's perspective about creativity and about what it takes to survive in a crazy industry and a fast-paced environment. We'll get into more aliens and AI next time.
We'll do it again.
But I appreciate you, man. I'll talk to you soon.
Later,
Brother.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning into the Creative Brief. I just wanted to say I'm so thankful for the support you've shown this podcast. Your feedback has been more than I could have hoped for, and I'm really excited to keep sharing these episodes. Be sure to tune in next week when my guest is the Matt D. Smith, or MDS, as you may know him online. You won't want to miss it. And remember, if you want to support this podcast, the best thing that you can do is subscribe to this channel wherever you're listening. It helps me produce more episodes and spread the reach of this podcast, and it helps more people listen to it. As always, thank you so much for listening. I'm Brian Athey, and I'll see you next time.